What's up, guys? Welcome to Knockers on the Bottom. I'm your host, Jay Mill. Jay Miller, if you like. So let's get into it. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hey, let's get into it. So a lot of stuff swirling around the Cowboys this week. Some people sounding the alarm in certain areas, and it's kind of getting on my nerves, right? So I'm not going to name any specific names because I like a lot of these people that are sounding these alarms. So let's just start by the players that they're sounding the alarms on. So let's start with Joe Milton, right? After the game, if you went back and listened to the post game episode, let you know that Joe Milton didn't have a great game at all, didn't even have a good game. He missed a lot of wide open receivers. Seemed like he didn't necessarily have his best day as far as being able to put touch on the ball, being able to go through his progressions, his reads, things like that, and being able to hit the wide receivers when they were running on open routes. There were several times. There was Florida running on an open route. There was Jalen Brooks running on an open route. There was a bad deep ball to Florida over the middle, even though I contend it was accurate and it hit Florida in the chest, but it was intercepted. But still, there was double coverage there. Maybe not the place that Joe Melton should have went. However, now all of a sudden there seems to be a contingent of people going, "Hey man, should we take Joe Melton out and then put in Will Greer and kind of see if he can get us a chance to evaluate these receivers?" First off, at any point of any time, the quarterback is more important than the wide receivers. If we're being honest, the Dallas Cowboys, if they're keeping five wide receivers, that's set, right? It's going to be CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Cavante Turpin, Jonathan Mango, and Jalen Tolbert. Those are your five receivers. A receiver has to be amazing in order to make the Cowboys keep six and decide to go short somewhere else. And, fortunately, it's Trayshawn Holden. He's been, I'm eating crow every day about that. Homeboy been getting it in over these last couple of practices since the game. He's actually showed up both days. So he's still, one of those people that's always ringing bells, kind of always doing something every single day. But it's still a long shot for the Dallas Cowboys to keep six receivers. Now, since we know for sure that those five wide receivers are making the team, we need to evaluate the quarterback, right? Joe Melton did not have a great day at all, but he has had great days of practice. And it's interesting to see, all of a sudden these alarm bells being rung over a bad preseason game. It was bad. Yet it was preseason, and it was one game compared to, I don't know, maybe about 20 practices going into that game. And maybe he was good, like very good, in about 7 or 8. Maybe he was average to above average in about another 7 or 8. And maybe he was bad in about 4 to 5. So we'll see how it goes this week. Hopefully he's learned his lesson. I mean, he did self-evaluate and tell her, hey man, I had a D game and I need to be better. So hopefully as we get closer to this game and he's putting these practices together, he sees some of the things that he had problems with and continues to progress. But under no circumstances should we all of a sudden sit Joe Melton and put Will Greer in for the evaluation of some 6th, 7th, or 8th receiver or some 4th tight end. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. The Cowboys traded a pick for Joe Melton to see if he could be the backup quarterback, right? And see if he was worth developing. And then throughout these practices, we saw, hey, he's got some serious arm strength. Hey, great size, really good mobility. He can spin it. Why all of a sudden would you go to a third-string quarterback who's 30 years old just to get a better evaluation of your 6th, 7th, and 8th receiver? Just saying it out loud makes me feel dumber. So I feel like people are sounding the alarm to have something to talk about. But it doesn't make much sense to do that. You let Joe Melton go out there, you give him more reps, you hope he has a slightly better game than the last game before that, and just kind of hope you see some progression in some of the things that you've been working on and some of the self reflection and see what happens there. And hopefully, you come out of this next game a little bit better than you came out of the first game. But, I really think it's pure BS. Another alarm being sounded. People all of a sudden think that Izaraku is not a good pass rusher or not as good as he's been. Man, listen. Schottenheimer already told you he's working with a 7 iron. So when you think about Schottenheimer working with the 7th iron, right? He's not only saying that he's working with that himself, but the rest of the team is working that way as well, right? We're not getting any complex routes. We're not getting any sort of game plan. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they wanted Donovan Ezeraku to work on his bull rush, and that's why he's been bull rushing this entire time between the Rams practice and the preseason game. Because once you put something on tape, other teams can game plan for it. Other teams know it's coming, right? So we know Donovan Ezeraku has great technique. He's very good with his hands. He's got very good shoulder bend. And honestly, he's even shown up in that Rams preseason game. He had a couple of pressures. But that's neither here nor there. Why would he show all of the moves, some of the moves, most of the moves, any of the moves that he has in the preseason? Why would he allow a team to get a beat on him while the games don't count? If you're thinking about it, what's his weakest part of his game? Bull rushing, power. So why wouldn't you take this time in the preseason to work on the weakest part of your game, right? So I really think sounding the alarm that all of a sudden Donovan Ezeraku can't rush the passer because he didn't show all of his moves in a preseason game is premature, right? We gotta pump the brakes a little bit. These are the best athletes in the world, the best coaches in the world, and the strategy behind some of these things are different. There's people sounding the alarm on Brian Schottenheimer. A certain Cowboys outsider slash insider that I love so much. I listen to him every day. He's like, oh, you got to know the condition of your team. You got to be able to help your team. And they came out in those first 2 series and threw 6 pass plays. And you weren't helping your defense and you weren't helping your team. This is the first game action, right? In a handful of months. The first game action, and it doesn't count. Why would Brian Schottenheimer come out and be like, Joe Melton on that first series threw 3 incompletions. You know what I need to do now? I need to establish the run, and then try to run play action off that run and come out and blow people off the ball. No. Brian Schottenheimer probably went into that game going, I want to see as many Joe Melton pass attempts as I can see. I want to see what happens when I put him on the move. I want to see what happens when I put him in shotgun. I want to see what happens when I put him in play action. Forget the defense. You know what? Hey, maybe as Coach Schottenheimer, I want to see what happens to my defense if they're put in a bind. If I come out and we start the game slow and we throw 6 straight passes and now my defense has to come in the field after 2, 3 and outs, how do some of these backup guys respond? I mean, that's a very logical thought, right? And then people sound the alarm, the run defense and this and that. Listen, man, the run defense probably had 2 players, maybe 3, who are going to be out there for a considerable amount of snaps. So, for example, Maris Leofau showed up, boom, bang, bow. Miracle Leofau wasn't out there with Micah Parsons and Osa Digizua and Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson. He was out there with second and third and fourth stringers. The Cowboys didn't play their top 37 players, right? So it's just interesting how people try to infer a lot from the preseason because guess what? If the Cowboys came out and they were nasty, they were disgusting during that preseason game, that wouldn't have mattered either because a lot of those players, A, won't perform the same way during the regular season, and B, won't even be out there playing. We're not going to be putting Joe Melton and Deuce Vaughn out there to start the opening drive against the Philadelphia Eagles. That's not happening. So it's just, we got to pump the brakes a little bit about trying to make these grandiose statements based off of the first preseason game and the first sort of live football action for these guys in a handful of months. So, I just wanted to get on and say that because it's been driving me nuts. I'm looking forward to the Ravens game this week because I do want to see more Joe Melton reps. I feel like you're supposed to treat preseason games, and I heard someone say this as well. Like I said, we're not naming names. I heard someone say this as well. Oh, they treated that first preseason game against the Rams like a practice. That's what it is. It's a practice. So, when they go through this second practice, this live practice against the Baltimore Ravens, what do I want to see? I want to see practice. Not a game, practice. I want to see Joe Melton get out there, have a couple more reps. I want to see Flournoy out there. I thought last week we would get Tyler Booker. I do believe this week we will get T-Book. I do believe this week we will get a few more of the starters. I still think there's, if we're not counting injuries, I still think there's about 10 to 12 guys who just won't see the field just because that's how the Cowboys operate. But I do believe Booker being a rookie, he'll see the field. And I do believe we'll get a little bit more film off of. I would love to see some of Jaden Blue, but we'll see how it goes with the heel bruise. But yeah, going into this week against Baltimore, I would love to see Easy play, with a couple more of the starters, not anybody crazy, but let's get Easy out there with Marshawn Nealon, but let's keep it vanilla, right? We're not going to be showing any of the mugged A-gap blitzes. We're not going to be showing any of how Sam Williams, had the pick six in practice today when he dropped off. Dak Prescott didn't see him dropping into the flat, and Dak Prescott threw the pass, and he had the pick, and he ran down the field. He looked awesome, sprinting at full speed. I don't expect to see any of that stuff, nor should we. We're playing the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles in Week 1. How stupid would it be, and how much would we all be bashing Brian Schottenheimer if he had his defense and himself come out there with a serious game plan in the preseason, showing things that they probably would do in Week 1, and then getting their ass beat because they put it on tape. Nobody would like that. I wouldn't like that. I'm pretty sure y'all wouldn't like that. But for some reason, it's the Cowboys, so we microcosm and microscope everything, right? Everything is an existential statement. Everything in every game is a statement on the state of the organization. We gotta pump the brakes a little bit, man. We gotta pump those brakes, please, y'all. But that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hit me up on Twitter, JMillerIYL. Again, that's JMillerIYL. You can also hit me up at knockersonthebottom@outlook.com. knockersonthebottom@gmail.com. You leave comments below if there's anything specific you want me to cover, any questions, or just anything you want to say. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. I love you guys. Until next time, I'm your host, J Miller if you like. This has been Knockers on the Bottom. Peace.